Okay, so the general consensus was that the last time we did this, it wasn't a complete disaster. So here we are. Welcome to episode 2. We're doing the Royal Rota from ITV all over again. And a great lineup of guests. As usual, next to me is the brains of the operation at ITV. Lizzie Robinson is the producer for the Royal Bureau at ITV. And sitting next to her, welcome Emily. Emily Nash is the Royal Editor of Hello magazine. Previously, you did the Royals at both The Sun and The Mirror as well?
The Sun, and prior to that I was at The Mirror as a news reporter. Yeah.
Right, OK. So, and you see, in other words, you've been doing the Royals a lot longer than me.
Yes,
so this is the point at which this is the point at which I sit back and just let you talk.
But hand over to Emily. Thank you.
As we explained last time, we called it the Royal Rota because we'd be talking to journalists who cover the royal family. Last time we had a journalist from Australia. This time we're lucky enough to have Emily with us. And actually, Emily, already we're in September, only just in September, but already the royal family are back at work at quite a pace, particularly Harry and Meghan.
Yeah, I mean, we've all noticed this week things are ramping up. We had their first outing last week to Hamilton, and last night they were at the WellChild Awards. So they have another event coming up as well this week. So there's plenty going on. Diary's filling up.
Let's talk about WellChild first. I was, and me and Lizzie went to speak to one of the winners. I was absolutely touched by the one that we spoke to, and there were many, many other winners, of course. But what an amazing charity and what they do for those kids.
It really is, and every year, you know, get these incredibly emotional stories from little children who are going through really quite horrendous illnesses and dealing with really difficult situations. And the night is really about celebrating them and their courage, and also thanking the people who care for them. So it's something Harry's been involved with since 2007 when he became patron of the charity.
And from the moment, because you were there, and from the moment the Duchess of Sussex, we keep calling her Meghan, I always tick myself off on that one, she got handed a bouquet of flowers, and she said to the little girl, actually, here's one for your memory bank.
Yeah, they met Matilda, who was 7, and she suffers from spina bifida, and she was one of the first children they met when they arrived. And Matilda gave the Duchess this bouquet of flowers, and the Duchess took one out and gave it back to her and said, no, you keep that for your memory bank. And I think the thing that struck me was that both the Duke and the Duchess of Sussex were so brilliant with the children. They were just completely natural with them. They put them totally at their ease. They made them feel like they were the only person in the room. And there was a little boy, Mackenzie, who was only 4, and he was clearly really shy and nervous about meeting them. And Harry just told him, ignore all of that lot.
Ignore you.
Ignore us, basically.
Yeah.
And he got his chair and he moved it round so Mackenzie couldn't see us. And he just totally.
I think Harry made a joke about the fact he doesn't like the cameras either, so,
which we all know.
We all know that's probably quite true.
Exactly.
Never a truer word spoken in jest. And I mean, I found it just really hard to know which child even to sort of focus on or to talk to. You either talk about Matilda with spina bifida, Mackenzie. I mean, despite his problems, he wants to help others when they feel down. We spoke to a girl called Chloe Henderson who's become a ballerina. She's got her own issues, you know, with cerebral palsy, and yet was a real inspiration. You know, that charity. It was fantastic, wasn't it?
It really is, and it means so much to the family. So I actually spoke to Matilda's mum after they'd had this chat, and she was just blown away by how sincere they were and how they immediately got down at Matilda's level to talk to her. And Harry actually made her do a pinky promise that she would keep smiling because she's a beautiful little girl. And
she had the most amazing smile.
Yeah, but he's, you know, he's down with the kids. He knows how to interact with them, and Meghan seems to have that too in spades. So it looked like they were really enjoying their time with the children. There were loads of lovely images of them high-fiving, or certainly Harry high-fiving kids at the end, and then the little girl grabbing his tie as well. So, you know, they're not standing on ceremony, and those kids are going to remember this moment for the rest of their lives.
And Harry said in his speech, didn't he? He said not only that this award means a lot to him, he was really proud to be able to bring his wife to it for the first time, but then he said about actually you kids are an inspiration to us. You show us how to live our lives to the fullest, despite everything that you've got, despite everything that life has dealt you.
Yeah, and I think that's right. I think that Harry does sort of have perhaps an affinity with kids who are going through a difficult time. You know, we know how involved he is with the kids in Lesotho and Botswana, for example, and I think it means a great deal to him also to be involved in the work, and he was obviously very happy to have Meghan there for the first time last night.
And that was the other event, actually, of the season, if you like, was Hamilton, which was the special gala performance of Hamilton, was in aid of Sentebale, the charity that helps children in Lesotho and Botswana because of, they've been orphaned by AIDS or they've been affected by the AIDS, HIV epidemic. I wasn't there. Lizzie wasn't there. Somebody in this room was.
I was there. I was incredibly lucky. I bought my own tickets, right. Treated my husband to a very late birthday present, and it was worth every penny. And obviously we had the added bonus of a royal presence there. So,
well, first thing first, the musical is amazing.
It's absolutely spellbinding. Yeah, it was absolutely brilliant and fantastic music, very innovative. It's this brilliant historical drama that is told through the medium of rap and R&B, and a bit of rock and pop and old-fashioned show tunes along the way. So, it's a feast for the senses. It's quite a lot to take
And we know
in.
Meghan's a big fan. I think she saw it in New York.
That's right.
On Broadway, and she's seen it once here in about February with Prince Harry. They went privately on a date, so we know that she's a big fan.
And what did she say? That you get a different response from the audiences in the US than you do in the UK, yeah?
Yeah.
That's right. So just to explain, for those of you who haven't seen it, sorry to be such a Hamilton bore, it tells the story of
Move on.
Yeah.
Alexander Hamilton, who's a founding father of the United States, and it's about America pulling away from Britain. So you have the figure of King George, who's obviously...
Okay, get this right. King George's relationship, King George III,
yes,
so-called last king of America, his relationship to Harry is the...
He is his sixth great-grandfather, I think.
Yeah.
So, great-great-great-great-grandfather.
That's correct, yeah. And obviously it's sending up Britain. This character appears, he's quite mournful about the fact that America is being lost to him. He's losing his colonies. He sings this song, You'll Be Back, which is basically him saying, yeah, you're not going to manage without me. And it's very catchy, and the actor playing him is absolutely brilliant in the role. And this had obviously, caught Harry's eye. And so when he got on stage later and saw this actor and was then given the microphone by the show's creator, Lin-Manuel Miranda, he did not miss the opportunity to sing the opening lines of the song. So he sent himself up.
2 words, wasn't it?
Yes.
2 words.
You say. But it was enough.
Right.
It was enough because he was basically taking on the mantle of his sixth great-grandfather, in this fictional sense at least. And it got a hell of a reception.
Yeah, the cast went crazy.
They went wild.
Yeah.
And it
Stamping and
transpired.
clapping.
Yeah, I think Lin-Manuel Miranda had actually asked him or suggested that he do something like this. And he wasn't going to go the full way, but yes, it was pretty memorable.
And musical aside, it was all raising money for Sentebale, that charity that means a lot to Harry. We actually were in Sentebale in the run up to the wedding, where the children at their children's home there were watching the wedding. It's a fantastic place, and we know how much that means to Harry. In fact, he goes out there as often as he can, and it raised a lot of money for Sentebale.
Yeah, I think something actually more like 300,000 was raised, and that's going to go towards setting up another centre similar to the Mamahate Centre in Botswana. So they're able to take that work, which is trying to remove the stigma around HIV/AIDS in young people, to a new country, which is, a huge achievement.
Last time we were in this studio and we were discussing the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, a lot of the talk was about the Duchess's father. Actually, interestingly, since that recording, we haven't heard from Thomas Markle at all, which in itself is quite a significant development, if I can refer to it like that. So actually, it looks like either he's decided to go quiet or some connection has been made, and the Thomas Markle issue for now is at least paused.
Look, we all said that after the wedding. There was this sort of grace period where nothing came out for a little while, and I really very much hope for all their sakes that this is the end of it now. I mean, there are a few things going on there. The diaries are busy. It's the end of silly season in the UK. We know that, there's always an appetite for slightly odd stories around August when there's not much going on in politics or world affairs. So, but I'd love to think it's because, they're reaching some sort of reconciliation behind the scenes. Who knows?
It does feel a bit more this week like we're back to business as usual. Harry and Meghan and some of the other royals are coming back to work.
A few crazy stories about breach of the protocol and all that kind of stuff.
Yes,
what Meghan likes to eat and what she's allowed to eat.
Not allowed to have pasta or whatever it was in some of those stories in certain publications over the summer period. So, as you mentioned, Lizzie, the royals coming back to work, if you like. They spent a lot of time at Balmoral, and we discussed some of the issues, and there certainly was an issue at Balmoral over the summer, but even today, coming back to work in a very silent way was Prince Charles. He didn't rev into the Royal Albert Hall this afternoon in a powerful car. What did he come in?
He's taken delivery of the royal family's first all-electric car. It's a Jaguar I-Pace.
Yes.
Not great on
Jaguar
cars,
I-Pace,
but a Jaguar I-Pace. So he turned up for his first engagement this morning at the Royal Albert Hall, and I think he described the car as silent but deadly.
And that's the thing I find about electric cars is you don't hear them coming.
Yeah, slightly unnerving if you're trying to cross the road, isn't it?
Yes, if you're coming up a ramp from a car park or something, and normally you hear an engine rev, but on this one you don't. But actually, I was looking at some of the stats for this car, and I will promise you I will not bore you, but 292 miles is its range. And I worked out that can get you pretty much from Clarence House, where Prince Charles lives, up to the Lake District. So if you fancy going for a walk, you could probably do it on one battery charge.
He could, but he's going to use, I think, the car for official duties just in London.
But only in London, which obviously explains something about the limitations of electric vehicles itself. But this is now going to be his car from now on. So no more, he's ditched the diesel, ditched the
But it's good,
electric.
He's practicing what he preaches, you know, and I think that sends out a really powerful signal to other road users. Although I don't think they've quite got the charge point set up yet, have they, at Clarence House?
No, a fast charge point is to be installed at Clarence House. I don't quite know whether they're just doing it from a normal electric socket in the kitchen window.
I was wondering about that, and whether they're just going to plug it in.
I suppose if
else.
it stops working halfway between engagements, we'll know that they haven't actually done a proper charge. I heard this morning, and this is actually not a massively reliable source, but I heard the Queen actually is due to get her own electric car soon as well. Who knows, maybe it's catching. But when we say first electric car, I think that the Prince Philip had something in the 1970s. There was
Didn't he have an electric London taxi?
No, that was liquid petroleum gas, that sort of London taxi he
right.
had. But he had something way back in the 70s, like the very first prototype. But I don't think it was anywhere near reliable enough to use on any visits. But so I had a few comments on social media to say, actually, there has been an electric car in the royal family before. But this is the first official one.
And Prince Charles, of course, has that Aston Martin he got for his 21st that runs on disused wine. Amazingly.
Who doesn't use enough wine? I mean,
spare
who
wine.
has spare wine?
Yes, absolutely.
Prince Charles.
And actually, so he's back at work, and actually, what he's got coming up is his 70th birthday, and we'll look at that in a minute. But even today, quite a few issues. He's got involved in the gritty issue of actually, is there enough funding for arts in state schools, which is the charity he was supporting at the Royal Albert Hall, and then tonight, quite a big event as well.
Yes, we're able to talk about this because I think it's embargoed until the point where we are.
At the point at which people will be watching this, he will have received this award, which is why we can say he's getting
a Lifetime Achievement Award at the GQ Awards, which is a really big deal, and it's for his philanthropy.
Yeah, to celebrate his long-standing charity work, they've said.
A really fitting tribute to him as he approaches 70, I think.
So the arts event, he wants to highlight that all schools should encourage children to take part in arts, and he doesn't want to see a decline in arts in our schools and education.
No, we had a question about the Prince of Wales and how he'll mark his 70th birthday. We haven't got all the details yet, but we've got a fair idea. And actually, ITV, funny enough, put out a press release this week talking about they're going to host an evening, as they call it, Fit for Royalty, a show called We Are Most Amused and Amazed, which will presumably be filmed at the London Palladium, I would have thought. Yeah, the London Palladium, yes, which is being recorded in October sometime. So we wait to find who's on the guest list.
There's going to be comics and magicians, so tricks up
when they did something similar for his 60th, they had Robin Williams, Joan Rivers, Rowan Atkinson. They had a pretty big old lineup.
I imagine you'll get a lot of big names as well. He's very well connected. He's a member of the Magic Circle, let's not forget.
Of course, yes.
So, and we know, obviously, Prince's Trust supported people like Dynamo. So, yeah, it looks like it's going to be quite a fun event.
And the 70th birthday is not until November, but there is that period, I suppose, in October when a lot of us are going to be away with Harry and Meghan on their tour of Australia, New Zealand, Fiji and Tonga. So therefore, it's almost like if you're a member of the royal family, you ain't going to get much coverage elsewhere in that month.
Unfortunately, that is the case. It's going to be wall-to-wall tour for a few weeks at least, isn't it?
Yeah.
Talking of documentaries, also, we had some news this week about something, again, ITV, other broadcast channels are available, I should add. But there is a programme involving the Queen. And there was some confusion about whether or not Meghan Markle had given an interview for this documentary, but essentially it's about the Queen and the Commonwealth, and we think Meghan is talking about her wedding dress, her veil, and you'll tell us why she's talking about that.
That's right. Well, as we know, Meghan wanted to reflect her forthcoming, although she's now embracing it, connection with the Commonwealth on her wedding day, and she chose to have this incredibly intricately embroidered silk tulle veil made with all 53 flowers from the member countries of the Commonwealth, as well as the California poppy, I believe, and
a flower from Kensington Gardens.
It grows, in fact, outside Nottingham Cottage, which is where they live. So that's very lovely. And, of course, the veil and the dress are going to be exhibited at Windsor Castle later this year. But this is going to be our first chance to hear from Meghan, you know, a little bit about the process and a bit about perhaps why she wanted to make this you know, this a part of her
because
day.
their first tour is to the Commonwealth. All four countries they're going to are Commonwealth countries. She mentioned the Commonwealth in that interview she did on the engagement day. She had the Commonwealth flowers sewn into her wedding dress. It's clear that she wants to have a bit of an impact, and she really wants to, as an American, learn about Britain and the Commonwealth.
And it's going to be, it's going to be such an important part of her life with Harry. He's now Commonwealth Youth Ambassador, and he, as we know, is brilliant as an ambassador for the UK in general, going overseas. But because of the way he connects with young people in particular, I think they're going to have real sort of star power on a global stage.
And the documentary about the Queen is quite a big deal in itself, because it's actually following about how over her reign she's travelled something like, did we work it out, like, or we looked at the figures, 1,032 miles, for the equivalent of 42 times around the globe. And the whole documentary is about her connection to the Commonwealth, which essentially grew out of the ashes of the British Empire when she became Queen.
Yeah, her commitment to the Commonwealth, I think, is over her life is incredible. She obviously doesn't travel anymore. Her last foreign trip was to Malta in 2015, but throughout that time she's visited 117 different countries, and many of those are the Commonwealth. And I think this documentary is paying tribute to her massive contribution to those Commonwealth countries, and it's lovely to see that the next generation want to pick up that mantle and follow the work she's done. And I think the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan, is trying to show how important it is to her to sort of embrace that, becoming part of the family.
Of course, the Queen herself hasn't come back to work yet. She's still on her long summer holiday at Balmoral. And whilst we've seen some pictures of various members of the royal family going to Balmoral, we haven't actually seen Harry and Meghan there yet. They haven't paid a visit. We saw William and Kate, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, were there with the children. So when they went to Balmoral, Prince George got taken to a grouse shoot, and that angered some animal rights charities, didn't it?
So there was a photograph of Prince George in a car with his mother, Kate, Zara, and one of his cousins. And the photograph prompted reports that George had been taken on a grouse shoot. The photograph was taken on private land, so it wasn't widely published in.
No, and with the reason why we won't show it here. So we don't know for sure that he went to a grouse shoot, but he might have gone to the lunch after the men and Princess Anne normally, isn't it, that went on the shoot.
Yeah.
And that was, there was quite a hard-hitting statement from people for the ethical treatment of animals, who was called it a violent perversion that hurts and kills beautiful birds. They went on to talk about it will give George nightmares. He should be helped to grow into a responsible, compassionate leader. Clearly, they didn't go down very well with them at all.
No, and it's something that's always going to polarise opinion. It's something that has been challenging for the princes in the past, I guess, as far as observers are concerned, because on the one hand, they're very anti-poaching, but as a family, as a family,
Tusk.
Exactly. And, I'm no expert on countryside matters, so I wouldn't want to, actually even attempt to have an opinion on this particularly. But I do know that there are some arguments from people in the countryside that actually it helps to control numbers and protect other species, birds of prey, etc. As I say, I'm no expert, but I'd love to sit down with Harry and William and hear their thoughts on it, because I think they probably have plenty of robust arguments about the situation.
Yes, I think we can agree he probably got taken to the lunch, and we're not accusing the royal family of actually giving him a gun at age 4 to start shooting. Well, we simply don't know, because we're on private land.
We put this to Kensington Palace, didn't we, who said there was no comment on the matter.
Exactly.
But there is obviously speculation, but it probably was that he was.
And talking of pictures at Balmoral, there have been a couple of the Duke of Edinburgh with new hip, looking like he's never had any other hip. He looks pretty well on it, doesn't he?
He's incredibly sprightly, isn't he? And because he's not been seen much in public, you know, there's always been a little bit of speculation as to how he's doing. But I think we can be in no doubt that he's fighting fit.
So we expect to see. Do you expect to see Harry and Meghan in Balmoral? You would have thought they would go and visit the Queen during the summer at some point.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if they didn't. We know they have spent some time up in Scotland already this summer at the Castle of May,
which is the
Queen
Elizabeth, the Queen Mother's former residence.
That's right. So I wouldn't be surprised if they go back up. And you know, Harry's quite regularly gone around the time of his birthday, which is next week, so it's quite possible that we may see him.
And what was that visit to Castle of May all about? Was that some sort of family bonding exercise with Charles and Camilla, do you think?
I would love to know.
Long walks on the North Scotland coast?
I mean, who wouldn't want to go and stay in a beautiful, dramatic castle for a few days? Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, the royal family are incredibly privileged, obviously, but they have these fantastic homes that they can go and escape to, and why wouldn't you?
Homes with an S, yes, of course.
Yes.
Yeah. And the Queen and Duke are likely to be up at Balmoral until October, so there is time, plenty of time for Harry and Meghan to still go up there and see them.
And talking of that, a question from Anna on Twitter was about when it's... Lauren on Twitter, Lauren Parkinson says, do we know when Catherine, by which she means the Duchess of Cambridge, is returning to work after maternity leave? We think it's sort of October time, don't we?
I would imagine we'll start hearing some information, some op notes will be dropping through our inboxes in the coming weeks. Yeah,
I mean, she only had the baby, Prince Louis, of course, in end of April, so, you know.
Yeah, it's very early days still.
Still early days, but I think we'll see her back to work at some point in the autumn.
And she has been sort of keeping informed of her charity work behind the scenes. I'm aware she's been taking correspondence, and I think she sort of likes to keep an eye on things.
And while we're on questions from people on social media, Anna asked, do you have any info about when the Duchess of Sussex's future patronages and work focus will be announced? And I suppose I still think, is it too long or is it too soon? I mean, are we expecting too much of her to have decided that by now? When's your best guess? End of the year?
I think sometime after the tour we'll get some announcements, and we may even get something during the tour, particularly if there's some sort of Commonwealth element. But we know she's been spending a lot of time behind the scenes researching this, meeting people from various organisations, and this has been ongoing since before the wedding. But I can imagine, you know, she wants to get things absolutely right, and it's been a huge learning curve for her. Let's not forget, it's less than a year since she moved to the UK.
Exactly.
You know, this time last year she was still filming Suits, so it's been a hell of a change for her.
It's quite something, isn't it? Because when we're talking about this, the Invictus Games will form part of the tour in Australia. And when you look back at the Invictus Games last year in Toronto, which was just under a year ago, wasn't it? And actually, it was that point we'd never actually seen them officially in public together. Yeah. Less than a year ago.
I know.
So,
yes, it's been
she was still
quite the
filming
whirlwind.
Suits,
quite
as you say.
A year.
I mean, if you were to sit down and write your diaries, you'd probably say that 2017-18 was a pretty big moment in your life.
Bit busy, yeah. Yes, I did have to come back from maternity leave slightly early.
You wouldn't have wanted to miss it, though.
Yes, no, I wouldn't have wanted to miss it. No, not at all. These things don't come around very often.
A bit like the Duchess of Cambridge. Maybe she might come back early for some reason. So, you know, do you think coming up in the autumn? I mean, do you think that the dominating theme is going to be this massive tour of the Commonwealth? We still don't have any details of what they're going to do. We just know the 4 countries that they're going to, and we think it's going to be after Eugenie's wedding, because we know Harry's going to want to go to that. Let's talk about the wedding for a sec. We discussed in the show last time about the cost, £2 million, and who should pay for it, and that's a regular sore point I notice on my social media notifications. But actually, we think, whilst it's lower key in terms of a royal wedding, there's going to be quite a few big stars at Eugenie and Jack's wedding on the 12th of October. Perhaps more stars than Harry and Meghan had at theirs.
I mean, I don't know if Oprah's going to turn up this time round, but I would be very surprised if the Clooneys don't attend, given that Jack works for George's tequila brand.
Clooney's to be there. Robbie Williams.
Yes, and his wife. And there is some speculation that their daughter may be a bridesmaid. And, you know, the princesses, Eugenie and Beatrice, are very well connected, you know, both here in New York. So yeah, I'd expect to see some fairly glamorous names there.
It's quite strange. You look at all the fuss, I suppose, that we made of Harry and Meghan's wedding and all the coverage that there was. And actually, Eugenie is only, what, 2 spots below Harry, not in the line of succession. You've got Harry, then you've got Prince Andrew, the Duke of York, then you've got Beatrice, then you've got Eugenie. She's not much further behind than Harry, and yet it seems to have none of the sort of excitement, none of that profile that the wedding had in May.
We have to remember she's not a working royal. She's not on the payroll.
Right. She's Royal Highness, but not on the...
She is, exactly. So she works privately, and although she, you know, lives in a palace, she's not funded by the taxpayer, say. And yeah, and I guess, you know, in the nicest possible way, people don't have as much of a connection with her, perhaps, just because she's not in the public eye as much as her cousin has been. So, well, I think people are really happy for her and Jack, and they do seem like such a lovely couple. It is slightly lower key, although whether or not we'll all get a lot more excited, I know at Hello we are already really looking forward to this wedding.
Well, the point, it's a wedding. I mean, the Queen's going to be there. I mean, it's for the Queen, it's her grandchild getting married. Yeah. It's just, as to her, just as important as when Harry got married.
It's a huge family event for them, yeah. So.
And I think people, as it builds close to the time, will get excited. And we do get asked a lot if it's going to be televised, a lot of tweets coming, questions to us whether it's going to be televised, and I think in some form, yes, it will be. I don't think you'll see sort of the big special programmes like you did with Harry and Meghan, but it will be televised in some form.
So there will be television cameras.
There will be. Inside
the Abbey, outside the Abbey, we think.
Chapel.
Inside the chapel, St George's Chapel in Windsor, of course. So that should roll off the tongue.
ITV's dream team are going to be very busy, I can see.
Yes,
yeah.
And the route, they'll take a carriage procession as well, which will also
and a slightly shorter one.
Slightly shorter.
It is a lot shorter. I think if you look at the routes, it's something like a sixth of the duration and distance.
Right.
So logistically, for the cameras, that is so much easier for us.
Here's a question. Do you think they've managed to give away or sell or whatever those tickets that they announced for going inside to St George's Chapel, inside the grounds of Windsor Castle? Do you think they've managed to...
Oh, I'm sure they have.
I'd be really surprised if they haven't, because there's so much interest around Windsor Castle in itself at the moment. I mean,
you've seen the queues recently.
You go down on an ordinary day.
Yeah, I mean, it's really captured people's attention, and there's always the draw, you know, of actually seeing the Queen and members of her family at close quarters. I'm sure they're long gone.
Now, just finally, before we go, let's talk about something that's coming up next week, which is pretty big. And I suppose a lot of the times people wonder about what's the royal family for, what's the point of them. And if the times I get asked that question, I always tend to come up with, look at a couple of things. Look at Invictus Games and look at mental health.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about mental health before Heads Together in the way in which we do now. Companies didn't talk about it and all the rest of it, and it's meant a lot to them. You know, do you remember seeing the picture of Harry and William and Kate with the headband, the Heads Together headband on? And actually, Prince William is taking that a step further next week when he's doing this mental health at work initiative.
Yeah, the Heads Together work that they did started to build last year, just ahead of the marathon, and they did a lot of work around mental health to raise the profile. And I think in the next week, William's going to launch another initiative as part of Heads Together to kind of raise that profile again.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to hearing more about this, because it sounds like a really worthwhile campaign. I mean, what they've done already has been incredible. I just know from the conversations I've had with friends, family members and colleagues that people do feel much more comfortable and able to talk about issues that we've all had, like, let's face it. And the fact that you potentially have industry leaders going out there and talking about their own experiences is hugely powerful.
The announcement from Kensington Palace says that among those who will speak is the Chief Executive of Lloyds Bank, Antonio Horta Osorio, who himself... and I'm sure he'll forgive me if I got his name slightly wrong, but he's become quite a key figure, because actually he had to take time off work because basically he suffered from mental health and depression. And normally a chief executive wouldn't admit that. They make up some other story. But I suppose that says something about the point that we've reached in terms of the mental health debate, that a chief executive like that can say that.
And the work that Heads Together has done to sort of make it part of the conversation and not make it sort of make us shy away from talking about it.
I think that's it. It's taking away the stigma around it, which is key, because certainly there are conversations that I wouldn't have had with a boss 10 years ago that now I would have no problem with, you know, having. I think And I think I speak for lots of other people as well. I think we're all being a lot more sensible about it and human about it.
And this looks like this is where the Duke of Cambridge is using the Royal Foundation, that's the sort of umbrella organisation under which a lot of these charities sit, to actually take it that step further, to actually say, OK, we're talking about it right now, but actually what are you going to do in the workplace when you go to your boss and say, I'm suffering, or when the boss themselves says they're suffering?
So yeah, this new initiative it's called Mental Health at Work. Surprisingly, and it's essentially a new online gateway to sort of resources and training and information. So businesses or people in the workplace that don't know where to go can find information out online. So it's for people that are sort of unsure about where to go, I think.
But it's crucial as well that they feel supported, so that, you know, the companies aren't going to be able to disregard people's concerns and complaints in the way perhaps that they have done in the past, because it's all going to be out there. And
very quickly, also next week, it's been announced by Kensington Palace this afternoon that the Duke of Sussex, Harry, is to go to the Royal Marines Commander Training Centre. And I think the interesting part of that is he's taken over, hasn't he, as Captain General of the Royal Marines, which was a position that was held previously by Grandad, by Prince Philip,
right,
who gave it up.
Like more than 60 years, yes. I don't remember.
Yeah,
but,
and this is his first, I think, his first time. He's visited this particular training centre in his role as Captain General of the Royal Marines.
Yeah, of course it was a Royal Marines engagement that was the final ever engagement that the Duke of Edinburgh did.
Yeah,
public
so
duty.
Imagine, you know, perhaps that's what they'll talk about if he does go up to Balmoral, passing on the baton a bit there. Because apparently Harry's going to be meeting recruits and finding out about the process of becoming a Royal Marine. We'll see whether he's still got the urge to go into action.
We'll wait to see if he goes to Balmoral. Thank you for coming in. Has it been okay? Enjoyed it?
It's been great fun. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very
I haven't
much.
disgraced myself.
We certainly appreciate you bringing your knowledge and your take and all the rest of it into this particular studio, and thank you very much for coming in. We'll be back. We don't know when we'll be back, but we'll be back soonish. And when we've got enough to talk about, is probably the right answer with that one. And as we said before, actually, what we're going to try and do, we've spoken quite a lot about the tour, this big tour to the other side of the world. If we can work out the technology to do one of these on the tour, then we'll also do that as well. And maybe we can
Bondi Beach.
sit there in our shorts and do it. I'm looking forward to that. And I know the digital team who put this whole thing together are quite jealous that we'll actually be doing that. But anyway, thanks for watching. That's episode 2 of the Royal Rota. If and when we've got more to talk about, we'll be back with episode 3.